Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into something that I think can really help out small businesses here in Australia, and that is email automation. Um, I know a lot of you might be thinking that email automation is only for those really big companies, but I was reading this blog post from Now Technology Systems, and it really convinced me that email automation is a game changer no matter the size of your business.
Absolutely. Think about all the time you spend on sending the same email over and over. Like welcome messages, order confirmations, follow-ups. Email automation can take all of that off your plate.
So for those of us out there that haven't really explored this yet, can you kind of break it down for us? What exactly is email automation?
Okay, so imagine you have this super efficient assistant, and they're sending out just the right email at the absolute perfect time, based on what a customer does on your website or even in your physical store. So say someone signs up for your email newsletter, boom, welcome message. Or maybe they add something to their online shopping cart, but they don't buy it. They get a little nudge from your assistant to remind them. It's all preset and personalized, and best of all, it happens totally automatically.
Well, that sounds pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But I bet some people are listening and thinking, okay, but how does this really benefit my business? Is this just some fancy tech thing, or does it actually make a real difference?
It's way more than just a fancy tech thing, trust me.
Okay, good.
This blog post really sold me on the idea that email automation lets you work smarter, not harder. Like take personalization, for example. So you could send an email that uses the person's name, but it could also go a step further and recommend products based on their past purchases. And when a customer sees that level of attention, they are much more likely to become a loyal customer.
That's amazing. And it
Yeah.
definitely saves you so much time. But I'm curious, does it actually lead to more sales?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just about sending more emails. It's about sending the right emails at the right time. Remember that abandoned cart example we were talking about before?
Hmm.
A well-timed email with a little discount could be all it takes to get that sale that you would lost otherwise.
Okay, so it's really about being strategic with your emails. And I think this leads us perfectly into what this blog calls crafting your email automation strategy. They say that it's more than just picking the right tool.
Yeah, for sure. They break it down into 5 steps. And step 1 is to define your objectives. So basically, you need to figure out what you want to achieve with email automation. Do you want to increase sales, boost traffic to your website, improve engagement with your customers, or is it something else entirely?
So it sounds like you really need to have a good idea of what you want before you even start with the technical side of things.
Yes, exactly. Once you know your goals, then step 2 is audience segmentation. Now, it might be tempting to just send out one email blast to everybody on your list. But let's be real here. Would you open an email that's super generic and doesn't apply to you at all?
Probably not.
Yeah.
So how do we go about segmenting the right way? What are some of the ways we can divide our audience?
I think you got to go beyond just basic demographics like someone's age or where they live. You got to look at behavioral segmentation. That's where the magic really happens. Like, have they bought something from you before? What pages do they look at on your website? This kind of data lets you send out laser-focused emails that actually matter to the person reading them.
So you figured out your goals, and you've put your audience into strategic groups. What's the next step on our email automation journey?
Step 3 is all about making really compelling content. Here's where you put on your marketing hat and you really think about what your audience wants to read. Are you giving them valuable information? Is it an engaging story? Maybe even throw in a little bit of humor.
Yeah, because nobody wants to read another boring email.
Exactly. You want to grab their attention. You got to give them something valuable. And you ultimately want to get them to do something, whether that's going to your website, making a purchase, or just learning more about your brand. That's the goal. And that brings us to step number 4, setting those triggers and timing. This is where the automation magic really comes in. You get to decide what specific actions will trigger an email to be sent out automatically. So let's go back to that example of someone putting an item in their online cart but not actually buying it. That right there is the perfect trigger to send a friendly little reminder email and maybe sweeten the deal with a small discount or something.
Oh, that's a good one. It sounds like you can really tweak this system to perfectly match your customers' behavior.
Exactly. And don't forget about the timing of your emails, too. It's super important. So, for example, that welcome email should go out right away as soon as someone subscribes. But a thank you email after someone buys something might work better if you send it a couple of days later. You just got to find that sweet spot where you're being helpful but not annoying people with too many messages.
Yeah, you don't want to bombard them. I'm starting to see how powerful this whole email automation thing can be. But with all this talk about data and sending out targeted emails, it makes me wonder about the whole legal side of things. Are there any rules here in Australia that we need to be aware of?
Oh, you're right to ask about that. It's definitely important. The blog post talks about how crucial it is to follow Australian regulations, especially the Spam Act of 2003 and the Privacy Act.
Okay, so break it down for us. What does all that mean for someone running a small business?
Well, first things first, you absolutely need to get consent before you send out any marketing emails. You can't just assume that people are okay with it because they visited your website. You got to have a very clear way for people to opt in, like a checkbox they have to click during sign up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to get a bunch of emails they never asked for. So
Yeah.
what about unsubscribing? That's got to be super easy to do too, right?
Right. 100%. Every single marketing email you send out has to include a clear and easy way for people to unsubscribe. And the second someone opts out, you got to respect that right away. No questions asked.
Okay, cool. So consent and unsubscribe options are super important. Anything else we need to keep in mind on the legal side of things?
You also got to be upfront about how you're using people's data. The Privacy Act is all about handling personal information the right way. So that means you got to be clear about what information you're collecting, how you're going to use it, and who you might be sharing it with.
So basically no funny business. No hiding behind confusing terms and conditions.
Nope. Transparency is key. If you're open and honest about how you're using people's data, they're way more likely to trust you with it. And speaking of honesty, you always got to be clear about who's sending the email. Don't try to hide behind some fake name or anything like that.
All right, so we've covered the legal stuff. Now I'm curious about what tools are out there. The blog post mentions a few different options, right?
Yeah, they do. They recommend MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, and Campaign Monitor. They say those are good options for small businesses. They all have their pros and cons. The best choice depends on what your needs are and how much you want to spend.
Can you give us a quick overview of each of those tools? Like what makes each one stand out?
Totally. MailChimp is a popular one because it's really user-friendly. Even the free version has a lot of great features. It's a perfect place to start if you're new to all this.
Okay, cool. And what about ActiveCampaign? What's their thing?
ActiveCampaign is more for people who want those really advanced automation features. It's kind of like MailChimp's big brother. It even has CRM features.
Wait, hold on. CRM, I'm not really sure what that is. Can you explain it for anyone listening who might not know?
Sure thing. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. It's all about keeping track of how you interact with your customers. Like, you can track what they buy from you and take notes on what they like. If your email marketing tool has CRM features built in, that means you can keep all that info in one place. And that means you can communicate with your customers in a way that's even more targeted and effective.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like ActiveCampaign is a good fit for businesses who are ready to go all in on automation. And they want to get that deep level of insight into their customers. Okay, so we've got MailChimp and ActiveCampaign. What about that last one, Campaign Monitor?
Campaign Monitor is an Aussie favorite. People love it for their awesome customer service and because it's really easy to use. Plus, they're really focused on helping businesses follow those Australian spam laws we were talking about.
So 3 really good choices. I bet they all have free trials so you can try them before you buy right.
You got it.
Yeah.
That's one of the best things about these tools. You can get a feel for how they work and see if they're right for you, and you don't have to spend any money to do it.
That's awesome. But even with all these great tools and resources, I bet some people still feel a little intimidated by this whole email automation thing,
Yeah.
especially if you're already super busy running your own business.
Oh, for sure. There's definitely a learning curve. It can be overwhelming trying to learn everything all by yourself. But there's one last piece of advice in the blog post that I think is really helpful. They say, don't go it alone.
Interesting. What do they suggest? Like, should you ask a techie friend for help or what?
They actually recommend that you work with a company that specializes in this kind of thing. Like Now Technology Systems, the company that wrote the blog post, they can help you set up and manage the whole system. They'll walk you through every step of the process, like choosing the right tools, coming up with your strategy, making sure you're following all the rules.
So it's like having a personal guide to help you along the way. They make sure you don't mess anything up.
Yeah.
And you get the most bang for your buck.
Exactly. They'll handle all the technical stuff. And you can get back to focusing on what you do best running your business.
That's a really good point. So we've covered a lot of ground here today. What are some key takeaways that you think our listeners should really remember?
I think the biggest thing to remember is that email automation isn't just some luxury for big companies with tons of money. Any small business owner here in Australia can use it. You can save time, personalize your marketing, build better relationships with your customers, and boost your profits.
And it all starts with a good strategy, right?
Yeah.
We can't just jump into this thing blindly.
Nope, you got to have a plan. Remember those 5 steps. Define your objectives. Segment your audience. Create compelling content. Set your triggers and timing. And always be testing and tweaking things to make them better. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, good analogy. And we can't forget about the legal side of things.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I got to follow the Spam Act and the Privacy Act.
Absolutely. Get consent, make it easy to unsubscribe, be upfront about how you're using people's data, and always be clear about who's sending the emails. It's all about building trust with your customers.
And the good news is that there are some really awesome tools out there that can help us do all this. MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, and Campaign Monitor all sound like really good options. They each have their own unique advantages.
They do. And the best part is that you can try them all out for free. You can find the perfect tool for your business without spending a dime.
That's great, but I know some people listening might still feel a little overwhelmed by this whole thing, even with all the tools and resources. Setting up email automation can seem a little daunting, especially for busy small business owners.
Yeah, it can be a lot.
That's why it's so helpful to bring in an expert, like the folks at Now Technology Systems.
Yeah, they can make your life so much easier. They can handle all the technical stuff so you don't have to.
Okay, so before we wrap up today, I want to leave everyone with something to think about. If you could automate just one type of email in your business right now, which one would it be? Which one would make the biggest difference for you? Think about the tasks you do every day. Think about your customer interactions. Where could you use a little bit of automation magic to free up your time and make things better for everyone?
It's a great question. Maybe it's those welcome emails that take forever to personalize. Or maybe it's those order confirmation emails that you're tired of sending manually. Whatever it is, just take a minute and imagine how much easier things could be with a little bit of automation.
Excellent food for thought. And as always, you'll find links to everything we talked about today down in the show notes. So you can check out those tools, read that blog post from Now Technology Systems, and even learn more about the Spam Act and the Privacy Act. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I hope you all learned some valuable tips and tricks about email automation and how it can help your small business thrive here in Australia.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.